The ceramic bowl. The alarm pierces through Maya's shallow sleep at 5:47 a.m., 3 minutes before it's supposed to ring. She's already awake, staring at the ceiling of her cramped Tokyo apartment, her mind cycling through the day's meetings like a broken record player. The mattress beneath her feels too soft, her neck aches despite the expensive memory foam pillow, and her mouth tastes like the stress-induced late-night snacking that has become her nightly ritual. At 35, Maya Chen has tried every wellness trend that's crossed her Instagram feed. The intermittent fasting app still sends notifications she ignores. The gym membership card sits unused in her wallet, collecting dust alongside expired discount coupons. Her kitchen counter displays the graveyard of good intentions, protein powders that taste like chalk, meal replacement shakes that never replaced the craving for real food, and a juicer that cost 2 weeks' worth of lunches. She pulls herself upright, catching her reflection in the black screen of her laptop. Even in the dim morning light filtering through her narrow window, she can see the puffiness around her eyes, the way her cheekbones have disappeared beneath a layer of inflammation that no amount of expensive skincare seems to touch. The weight isn't just in her belly, it's in her shoulders, her jaw, the constant tension that makes her feel like she's carrying invisible sandbags everywhere she goes. Maya shuffles to the kitchen, stepping over yesterday's clothes, and reaches for the instant coffee that promises to make her human again. As she waits for the kettle to boil, her eyes drift to the small ceramic bowl sitting alone on the top shelf of her cabinet. It's her grandmother's rice bowl, brought from Taiwan decades ago, smaller than any dish she regularly uses now. The ceramic is a soft blue-grey, worn smooth by countless meals with tiny hairline cracks that catch the morning light. Her phone buzzes with a message from her co-worker, Hiroshi. Early meeting moved to 8 a.m. Can you make it? Maya groans, calculating how much caffeine she'll need to appear functional. Hiroshi seems to glide through these schedule changes with an almost supernatural calm that irritates her. While she gulps coffee and skips breakfast, he arrives at the office with a small bento box, eating with deliberate slowness even during lunch meetings. The kettle screams, jolting her back to the morning routine. As she pours water over the instant granules, watching the brown powder dissolve into something barely resembling coffee, Maya catches herself wondering what Hiroshi eats for breakfast. She's never seen him frazzled, despite working the same demanding hours at their marketing firm. His desk remains organized, while hers disappears under stacks of papers and empty energy drink cans. During yesterday's client presentation, she'd noticed how Hiroshi sat perfectly straight throughout the 3-hour meeting, while she shifted constantly, her lower back aching from the combination of poor sleep and the stress that seemed to settle in her core like a weight she couldn't shed. When she asked him afterward how he managed to stay so focused, he just smiled and said something about rhythm being more important than effort. Maya checks her phone. 17 notifications from various apps tracking her sleep, steps, and caloric intake. Each one delivers a subtle judgment about her failure to optimize her life. The sleep app cheerfully informs her that despite 8 hours in bed, her deep sleep amounted to less than 90 minutes. Her fitness tracker congratulates her on achieving barely 3,000 steps yesterday, most of them from pacing anxiously around the office. She downs the coffee in 4 large gulps, feeling the familiar spike of alertness that she knows will crash by mid-morning, sending her reaching for another fix. The cycle has become as predictable as Tokyo's train schedules. Caffeine, brief energy, crash, more caffeine, afternoon sugar craving, evening exhaustion, late-night scrolling, shallow sleep, repeat. As Maya reaches for her work bag, her gaze returns to the ceramic bowl. Something about its quiet presence on the shelf makes her pause. When did she stop using it? When had she traded her grandmother's careful portions for the oversized plates and endless snacking that now defined her eating? The bowl seems to hold a memory of a different rhythm, a time when meals had boundaries and purpose. She makes a mental note to ask Hiroshi about his morning routine, though part of her already dreads the answer. She's tired of advice that requires more willpower than she possesses, more gym time than her schedule allows, or more expensive supplements than her budget can handle. But something about the way he moves through his days suggests a different approach entirely, one that doesn't rely on forcing her exhausted body into submission. If you've ever felt tired even after a full night of sleep, or frustrated with diets that don't last, tell us in the comments which part of this story feels familiar, and stay with us for the next chapters. 3 days later, Maya finds herself in the break room at 7:30 a.m., watching Hiroshi prepare what looks like the world's simplest breakfast. He's arranged small portions of rice, pickled vegetables, and miso soup in containers that seem designed for a child's lunch. Everything fits perfectly in his hands, and he eats with wooden chopsticks that force him to take smaller bites than the metal fork she's stabbing into her convenience store sandwich. "That looks very precise," Maya says, gesturing at his meal with her coffee cup. Hiroshi looks up, finishing his bite completely before responding. "My grandmother always said the stomach is the size of your fist. Western portions confused me when I first traveled." He holds up his closed hand next to his rice bowl. Same size. Maya glances at her sandwich, 2 thick slices of bread stuffed with processed meat and cheese, easily 3 times larger than his rice portion. She grabbed it without thinking, the way she grabs most meals, quickly, efficiently, eating while walking or working or scrolling through her phone. "But don't you get hungry?" she asks, realizing even as she speaks that Hiroshi never seems to snack between meals, never raids the vending machines that punctuate her afternoons. "I eat until I'm no longer hungry," he says, "not until I'm full. There's a difference." He demonstrates by putting down his chopsticks for 30 seconds, checking something internal Maya can't quite understand. Hara Hachi Bu. Stop at 80%. And that evening, Maya finds herself staring at her grandmother's ceramic bowl again. She fills it with rice, surprised by how little fits compared to her usual dinner plate. The portion looks almost comically small beside the takeout containers that typically dominate her coffee table while she eats in front of Netflix. She decides to experiment. Sitting on her floor instead of the couch, she holds the bowl in her left hand, the way she remembers her grandmother doing. The chopsticks feel awkward in her fingers. She's been using forks for so long that she's forgotten the slower rhythm they demand. Each grain of rice requires attention. She can't mindlessly shovel food while watching her phone. Halfway through the bowl, something strange happens. She notices a subtle shift in her hunger, a gentle satisfaction she usually bulldozes through on her way to feeling stuffed. Following Hiroshi's advice, she puts the chopsticks down and waits. Her stomach doesn't feel empty, just neutral, content. The next morning, Maya wakes up feeling different. Not transformed, she's not naive enough to expect miracles, but lighter somehow. Her usual morning bloating seems reduced. More importantly, she doesn't immediately crave the sugar-heavy breakfast that typically starts her day. She decides to visit the small grocery store near Hiroshi's neighborhood, curious about the foods that seem to keep him so steady. The elderly shopkeeper, Mrs. Tanaka, guides her through ingredients Maya has walked past for months without seeing. Short-grain rice that cooks up sticky and satisfying. Fermented miso paste that transforms hot water into something nourishing. Sheets of nori that dissolve on her tongue with a taste of the ocean. "You want to feel full or satisfied?" Mrs. Tanaka asks in careful English, holding up 2 different types of rice. "Full goes away quick. Satisfied stays with you." Maya chooses the rice that promises satisfaction over volume, along with a package of chopsticks and a small ceramic bowl that reminds her of her grandmother's. That night, she eats her simple dinner sitting on a cushion on her floor, the bowl warm in her palm, the chopsticks forcing her to slow down enough to taste each bite. By the end of the week, the experiment has become something like a ritual. She wakes earlier, not from an alarm, but because her sleep feels deeper despite being shorter. The constant low-level hunger that used to drive her to the vending machines has faded, replaced by clear signals of actual need. Her afternoon energy crash, the one that typically sent her reaching for candy or coffee, simply doesn't arrive. The changes are subtle enough that she almost dismisses them. But when her co-worker Jessica comments that Maya seems less stressed lately, she begins to pay attention. The face in her bathroom mirror looks the same, but something behind her eyes appears calmer. The morning puffiness that made her avoid looking at herself has softened. Most surprising is the clarity that comes with the slower eating. Without the distraction of her phone or the numbing rush of overeating, she's begun to notice flavors she'd forgotten existed. The rice tastes nutty and complex. The miso carries hints of sweetness beneath its salt. Even her morning tea, when she replaces her rushed coffee with something she can sip slowly, becomes a moment of quiet in her chaotic schedule. But the real revelation comes during a work lunch with clients. While her colleagues order large portions and eat quickly between talking points, Maya finds herself naturally choosing smaller amounts and taking time to chew. The clients don't notice, but she feels more present in the conversation, less distracted by the discomfort of overeating. For the first time in months, she leaves a business meal feeling energized rather than sluggish. 2 weeks into her chopstick experiment, Maya's changes haven't gone unnoticed. During their weekly happy hour, her friend Jessica studies Maya's face with the intensity of someone examining evidence. "Okay, what's the deal?" Jessica asks, sipping her third cocktail while Maya nurses a single glass of green tea. "New skincare routine? Botox? You look different." Maya laughs, feeling self-conscious. "I'm just eating slower." "That's it?" Jessica's skepticism is palpable. "Come on, what diet are you really doing? Keto, intermittent fasting, those meal replacement shakes?" The truth feels almost embarrassing to admit. "I'm using chopsticks and a smaller bowl." Jessica stares at her. "You're kidding, right? That's not a real diet. You need structure, calories counting, macros. My trainer says you have to shock your system to see real change." Maya doesn't argue, but privately she wonders if shocking her system is exactly what's been going wrong. For years, she's tried to force her body into submission with extreme restrictions, punishing workouts, and complicated rules that required constant willpower to maintain. Every approach had the same trajectory: initial enthusiasm, brief success, eventual burnout, and a return to worse habits than before. This feels different because it doesn't feel like a diet at all. She's simply eating from a smaller container and taking longer to finish. The changes in her body seem to be emerging naturally, like flowers that grow when you stop trying to force them. Dr. Martinez, her physician, notices during Maya's routine checkup 3 weeks later. "Your blood pressure is lower than it's been in years," she says, reviewing the numbers with genuine surprise. "And you've lost 8 pounds without trying?" Maya explains her chopstick routine, expecting the doctor to dismiss it as insignificant. Instead, Dr. Martinez nods thoughtfully. "There's actually substantial research on this," she says. "Eating speed affects hormones that signal satiety. When you eat quickly, your brain doesn't get the message that you're satisfied until you've already overeaten. Chopsticks naturally slow you down, and smaller dishes create visual cues that help with portion control." She pulls up a study on her tablet. "Japanese populations have some of the lowest obesity rates in the world, despite having access to the same processed foods we do. Their traditional eating practices, smaller portions, slower pace, stopping before feeling full, seem to protect against the metabolic dysfunction we see in Western countries." Maya feels vindicated, but also slightly sad. Why hadn't anyone mentioned that the solution might be gentler than she'd imagined? Why had every health expert she'd consulted focused on what to eliminate rather than how to eat? The validation from Dr. Martinez gives Maya confidence to continue, but not everyone in her life supports the changes. Her mother calls from California, worried that Maya's newfound eating habits signal some kind of crisis. You're not becoming one of those people who gets obsessed with weird health trends, are you? Her mother asks. Your cousin tried that Japanese diet thing and ended up malnourished. Maya tries to explain that she's eating the same foods, just differently, but her mother's anxiety is palpable. I just worry you're getting too thin. You look so serious in the photos you posted. Are you happy? The question catches Maya off guard. Is she happy? She's definitely calmer. The constant low-level anxiety about her weight has faded, replaced by a quiet confidence in her body's signals. Food has stopped being a source of guilt and become something closer to fuel. But happiness feels like too strong a word for what is really just peace. At work, Hiroshi notices the changes too, but his response is different. During a particularly stressful project deadline, he observes Maya eating her lunch slowly, despite the chaos around them. You learned the rice bowl lesson, he says simply. Is that a real lesson, Maya asks. Everything is a lesson if you pay attention, he replies. But yes, my grandmother taught me that how you eat teaches you how you live. Rushed eating, rushed thinking. Mindful eating, mindful decisions. Maya considers this as she watches their colleagues wolf down fast food while hunched over their laptops, crumbs scattered across important documents. She used to eat the same way, treating meals as obstacles to productivity rather than opportunities to pause and recalibrate. The real test comes during a client crisis that requires 16-hour workdays. In the past, these intense periods would derail any healthy habits she'd managed to establish. She'd live on vending machine snacks and convenience store sandwiches, her eating schedule completely at the mercy of meetings and deadlines. This time, Maya packs small portions in containers she can eat slowly, even during brief breaks. Instead of the energy spikes and crashes that used to characterize stressful periods, she maintains steady focus throughout the long days. Her colleagues comment on her composure under pressure, but Maya knows the secret. She's learned to nourish herself consistently, even when life becomes chaotic. By the end of the crisis week, she's lost another 3 pounds without trying. But more importantly, she's proven to herself that these changes can withstand real-world pressure. The habits have become sturdy enough to support her, even when everything else feels unstable. Would you rather force yourself with willpower or redesign your environment and habits like this character is learning to do? Comment which path makes more sense to you, and share this episode with someone who needs a gentler approach to change. 6 weeks after discovering the power of her grandmother's ceramic bowl, Maya faces her biggest test yet, a week-long business trip to Osaka with 3 demanding clients and a schedule that would have previously destroyed any healthy routine she'd managed to establish. The old Maya would have packed protein bars and resigned herself to airport food and hotel room service. Instead, she researches traditional breakfast spots near her hotel and packs her ceramic bowl and chopsticks in her carry-on, ignoring Jessica's eye roll at the security checkpoint. You're seriously traveling with your own dishes now? Jessica asks, watching Maya carefully wrap the bowl in a sweater. This is getting a little extreme. Maya doesn't respond, but privately she disagrees. Extreme was the detox tea that made her sick for 3 days. Extreme was the 4 a.m. gym sessions she could never maintain. Carrying a small bowl feels practical, not obsessive. In Osaka, Maya discovers that her new eating rhythm aligns perfectly with Japanese culture in ways that surprise her. The hotel breakfast features small portions of grilled fish, rice, miso soup and pickled vegetables, exactly the kind of balanced, satisfying meal she's learned to appreciate. She eats slowly, watching salarymen do the same thing around her, their movements deliberate and unhurried despite the early hour. Her American clients, meanwhile, struggle with the smaller portions and unfamiliar flavors. Where's the real breakfast? One complains, loading up on bread and pastries from the western section of the buffet. By 10 a.m. he's crashing and demanding coffee. Maya feels steady and alert through their morning meetings. The revelation comes during a dinner with potential Japanese partners. Maya watches as their hosts order numerous small dishes designed for sharing, eating slowly, and pausing frequently for conversation. The Americans, including herself initially, want to order individual large entrees and eat quickly so they can get back to business. But following her new habits, Maya finds herself naturally adapting to the Japanese rhythm. She takes small portions, chews thoroughly, and puts down her chopsticks between bites to engage in conversation. She notices when she's satisfied and stops eating, even though food remains on the table. Halfway through the meal, Tanaka-san, their lead contact, comments approvingly. "You understand our way of eating?" he says to Maya. "Most Americans eat like they're afraid the food will disappear." The comment stings because it's true. Maya realizes she's spent years eating defensively, as if scarcity were always around the corner. The abundance of American culture had paradoxically made her feel constantly hungry, constantly worried about having enough, getting enough, eating enough before time ran out. Her colleague, David, who's been pushing through jet lag with caffeine and large meals, looks increasingly uncomfortable as the evening progresses. He keeps checking his phone and shifting in his seat, clearly wanting to be anywhere but at a table full of food he can't finish quickly. "I don't understand how they eat so little and have energy," he confesses to Maya later. "I'm starving, but every time I eat a normal amount I feel sick." Maya realizes that her normal has shifted dramatically. What once felt like deprivation now feels like sufficiency. The constant background anxiety about food, when she'd eat next, whether she'd chosen the right thing, whether she'd eaten too much or too little, has faded into something much quieter. On her last morning in Osaka, Maya eats breakfast alone at a small restaurant near her hotel. She orders rice, grilled fish and miso soup, eating slowly from bowls that could be siblings to her grandmother's ceramic bowl. For the first time in her adult life, she feels completely at peace with a meal. The elderly woman serving her notices Maya's careful eating rhythm and nods approvingly. "You eat like Japanese grandmother," she says in careful English. "Good for body, good for heart." Maya smiles, thinking of her own grandmother, who had tried to teach her these lessons decades ago, before American supersizing buried them under layers of cultural confusion. She feels a deep sadness for all the years she'd fought her body instead of listening to it, all the money spent on complicated solutions to a simple problem. When she returns to Tokyo, Maya weighs herself for the first time in 2 months. She's lost 15 pounds, but the number feels almost irrelevant compared to how she feels in her body. Her clothes fit differently, not just looser but better, as if her proportions have shifted towards something more natural. The constant bloating has disappeared, along with the afternoon energy crashes that used to punctuate her days. More importantly, her relationship with hunger has completely transformed. She now experiences it as information rather than emergency, a gentle signal rather than a desperate alarm. The bowl sits on her counter now, not hidden in a cabinet, a daily reminder that sometimes the oldest solutions are also the most effective. But the real change isn't physical. It's the quiet confidence that comes from proving to herself that she can be trusted to make good decisions about her body. For years, she'd outsourced that trust to diets, experts, apps, and complicated systems. The ceramic bowl had given it back to her, one mindful bite at a time. 3 months into her ceramic bowl practice, Maya sits in Dr. Martinez's office, reviewing blood work that tells a story she's almost afraid to believe. Her inflammatory markers have dropped by 40%. Her fasting glucose, which had been creeping toward pre-diabetic levels, has returned to normal range. Most remarkably, her cortisol levels show the kind of improvement typically associated with meditation retreats or extended vacations. "I have to ask," Dr. Martinez says, setting down the lab results. "What else have you changed besides eating with chopsticks and a smaller bowl?" Maya thinks carefully. "Nothing dramatic. I sleep a little better now that I don't eat late or overeat. I have more energy, so I walk more, but I'm not exercising more than before. I just feel steadier. Dr. Martinez nods, unsurprised. You've stumbled onto something we're finally understanding in Western medicine. The way you eat affects your nervous system, not just your metabolism. When you eat quickly and in large quantities, especially while distracted, you're signaling to your body that you're under threat. Chronic stress hormones follow. She pulls up a chart showing the connection between eating patterns and stress responses. Your grandmother's bowl was essentially a biohack before we knew what biohacking was. Smaller portions, slower pace, focused attention. These practices tell your nervous system that you're safe, that resources are abundant, that there's no need to store everything as emergency fat. The science validates what Maya has been feeling, but it also clarifies something that had been bothering her. Why had all her previous diet attempts failed while this simple change succeeded? The answer isn't just about food, it's about trust. Every restrictive diet she'd tried had been built on the premise that her body couldn't be trusted, that her hunger was wrong, that her natural instincts needed to be overridden by external rules. The ceramic bowl approach had done the opposite. It had taught her to listen more carefully to signals she'd been ignoring for years. That evening, Maya calls her grandmother in Taiwan, something she's been meaning to do for weeks. Her grandmother, now 87, listens patiently as Maya describes her rediscovered relationship with the ceramic bowl. "Ah," her grandmother says, her voice carrying the satisfaction of someone whose long-held wisdom has finally been recognized. "You remember now how to eat like human, not like hungry ghost." "Hungry ghost?" Maya asks. "Buddhist teaching," her grandmother explains. "Hungry ghosts have enormous appetites but tiny mouths. They can never get enough because they eat too fast, don't taste, don't appreciate. Western culture makes many hungry ghosts." The metaphor hits Maya like a gentle revelation. She had been a hungry ghost, constantly consuming but never satisfied, always looking for the next thing to fill the emptiness that food couldn't actually touch. The ceramic bowl had given her a smaller mouth, forcing her to slow down enough to actually taste her life. Her grandmother continues, "I tried to teach you when you were small, but America is very loud about food. Big portions, fast eating, food with TV, food with worry. Hard to hear body wisdom over all that noise." Maya remembers now, her grandmother setting out small bowls for meals, insisting they eat slowly, putting down utensils between bites. At the time, it had seemed inefficient, even boring. American culture promised that bigger and faster was better, that efficiency was the highest virtue. But the bowl had taught her that efficiency in eating was like efficiency in breathing, possible, but ultimately self-defeating. The slower pace hadn't made her meals longer, it had made them more complete. She now felt satisfied for hours instead of hungry again within minutes. The conversation with her grandmother crystallizes something Maya has been reluctant to fully acknowledge. This change has been about much more than weight loss. The ceramic bowl has been a gateway to a different way of being in her body, a gentler relationship with her own needs and limits. She thinks about the ripple effects that have spread through her life. She now wakes up naturally most mornings instead of fighting with alarms. Her afternoon energy is steady rather than volatile. She makes better decisions at work because her blood sugar doesn't spike and crash throughout the day. Even her skin looks different, clearer, less inflamed. Most profoundly, the constant mental chatter about food has quieted. She used to spend enormous amounts of mental energy planning, restricting, guilt managing, and strategizing around eating. That cognitive load has lifted, freeing up space for other thoughts, other pleasures, other concerns. Maya realizes that her grandmother's ceramic bowl has been teaching her something Western culture rarely discusses. The possibility that less can actually be more, that slower can be more efficient, that listening can be more powerful than controlling. The bowl sits on her kitchen counter now, a daily reminder that the most transformative changes often look deceptively simple from the outside. But Maya knows the truth. Simplicity on the surface often conceals profound complexity underneath, like an iceberg of cultural wisdom that extends far deeper than the small ceramic vessel that brought it into her life. 1 year after rediscovering her grandmother's ceramic bowl, Maya stands in her kitchen preparing breakfast with movements that have become second nature. The bowl fits perfectly in her palm, filled with rice that she'll eat with the same wooden chopsticks that once felt clumsy in her hands. The morning light catches the hairline cracks in the ceramic, each one a testament to decades of nourishing meals. Her reflection in the kitchen window shows someone she almost doesn't recognize, not because she looks dramatically different, but because she inhabits her body with a kind of calm authority that was missing for years. The anxious tension that used to live in her shoulders has melted away. Her face, while thinner, carries a contentment that has nothing to do with the number on her scale. Maya has lost 32 pounds over the year, but the weight loss feels almost incidental to the larger transformation. Her energy remains steady throughout long workdays. Her sleep is deeper and more restorative. Her skin has cleared, her digestion has normalized, and her blood work continues to improve with each checkup. More importantly, food has stopped being the enemy. She eats dessert when she wants it, travels without anxiety about maintaining rigid rules, and navigates social meals with confidence. The difference is that she now approaches eating with the same mindfulness she brings to other important activities. Hiroshi stops by her desk that morning with a small smile. "You've graduated," he says simply. "From what?" Maya asks. "From fighting yourself," he replies. "My grandmother always said you can't win a war against your own body, but you can make peace with it." Maya's phone buzzes with a text from Jessica, who has finally stopped expressing skepticism about Maya's weird bowl thing and started asking genuine questions about how it works. Several colleagues have noticed the changes and quietly asked for advice. Maya finds herself explaining not just the mechanics of smaller portions and slower eating, but the deeper principle, working with your body's wisdom rather than against it. Dr. Martinez calls that afternoon with Maya's latest lab results. "Your inflammation markers are now in the optimal range," she says. "Your metabolic health profile looks like someone 20 years younger. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." But perhaps the most meaningful moment comes during a video call with her grandmother. The elderly woman studies Maya's face through the screen with the careful attention of someone who understands that true health shows up in subtle ways. The clarity of someone's eyes, the ease of their movements, the quality of their presence. "You look like yourself again," her grandmother says finally. "For a long time, you looked like someone wearing costume. Now you look like Maya." That evening, Maya sits on her floor with the ceramic bowl, eating slowly as rain patters against her windows. She thinks about the journey that brought her here, not the weight loss, but the relationship repair. The bowl has taught her that healing doesn't require heroic gestures or extreme transformations. Sometimes it just requires returning to wisdom that was always available, waiting patiently for her to remember. She photographs the bowl for her social media, not to show off her results, but to honor the simple object that changed everything. The caption reads, "My grandmother's ceramic bowl taught me that the most powerful changes often look the smallest from the outside. A year ago, I thought I needed more discipline. Turns out I needed more listening." The responses surprise her with their vulnerability. Friends and strangers share their own struggles with food, weight, and the exhausting cycle of restriction and excess. Many ask for the secret, and Maya finds herself typing the same response over and over. There is no secret, only a return to eating like a human being instead of a machine. As she prepares for bed, Maya places the bowl in its usual spot on the counter. Tomorrow she'll fill it again, eat slowly, listen to her body's signals, and trust the process that has given her back her life. The bowl will be there, as it has been every day for the past year, a small ceramic anchor in a world that often feels too fast, too much, too urgent. Maya turns off the lights and heads to bed, carrying with her the profound satisfaction of someone who has learned to be gentle with herself. The journey isn't finished, it may never be finished, but she no longer needs to fight her way toward health. She simply needs to remember, one mindful meal at a time, how to nourish the person she's always been underneath the noise. The ceramic bowl sits quietly in the kitchen, holding space for tomorrow's breakfast and for the continuing practice of treating her body as an ally rather than an adversary. In its simple presence, Maya has found something more valuable than weight loss. She's found her way home to herself. If this story reminded you that real transformation comes from small habits repeated over time, not from overnight fixes, subscribe to the channel. Tell us which country you watch from and invite someone to start this journey with you in the next story.